How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Ein Ches, Daf 78 of Masechta Yevamis. Just kidding, Masechta Kiddushin. Friends, today... Oh no, I'm on the wrong page. Let me do that again. How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Ein Zayin, Daf 77 of Masechta Yevamis. Just kidding, Masechta Kiddushin. Masechta Kiddushin. Friends, what do you want me to tell you? Let's go weiter. We're going to start in Daf Ein Zayin Amud Aleph all the way at the top, at the Mishnah. Bas cholol zachar psula min hakuna le'olam. So if you have a cholol who marries a bas Yisrael, so the child is going to be a cholol, and it says le'olam, forever, meaning, so like if it's a boy, so the boy will be a cholol, and then if that boy marries a bas Yisrael, and then they have a boy, that boy will be a cholol, and if they keep on having boys, one after the next is going to be a cholol. Then when they have a daughter, that daughter is going to be a chalala. But a chalala, when she has a baby, assuming that it's from a Yisrael, so then it will no longer be a chalal. Fine. So again, so bas cholol zachar. So if you have a chalal fellow, psula min hakuna, so that daughter cannot marry a kohen le'olam, forever. Yisrael shenos chalala. Now, if a Yisrael marries a chalala, so then bito ksheir, the child is ksheir. The daughter ksheir lechuna, she can marry a kohen. Chalal shenos bas Yisrael, a chalal who marries a bas Yisrael bito psul lechuna, the daughter cannot marry a kohen. The Gemara is going to ask, that's the same thing as the first statement of the Mishnah. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda, bas ger zocher ke bas chalal zocher. So it says Rabbi Yehuda that the daughter of a ger is like the daughter of a chalal. Sorry, there's a little bit of noise outside. That she cannot marry a kohen. Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov, or Mrs. Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov, Yisrael shenasa giores, that if a Yisrael marries a giores, bito ksher, the child is ksher, lichuna. V'ger shenasa bas Yisrael, and a ger who marries a bas Yisrael, bito ksher lichuna, the daughter can also marry a kohen. Aval, but ger shenasa giores. But if a ger marries a giores and both parents are gerim, so bito psul lechuna, the child cannot marry a kohen, according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Echad ger v'echad avodim mishuchorim. Now, whether it's a ger, a proselyte, or whether it's a freed eved, kanani, afilu ad yudoros, even 10 generations later, hajtei imo miso, we would need the mother to be a Yisrael, meaning, if generation after generation it's both parents are gerim, so then the child will be unable to marry a kohen. But once one of them is not a kohen, is not a ger, so then the child can marry a kohen. Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi av ger shenos giores bituk ksher lechuna. Says Rabbi Yossi that no, he disagrees with Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and certainly with Rabbi Yehuda, that even a ger who marries a giores, the child is ksher lekehuna. Says the Gemara, my le'olam, what does it mean forever? Right? It said bas cholol zocher psul min hakuna le'olam, forever. So I may have thought midhava mitzri v'adomi. Well, maybe it could be like a mitzri or an adomi. Ma leholon lachar shlosha doris afkan nami lachar shlosha doris. Just like by a ger mitzri v'adomi, it's limited to 3 generations. So I may think also here by a cholol it's limited to 3 generations. So Kamash Milan, no, so long as the child continues to be a boy, a zun, yingle. So then it will continue to be a chal. Man, dag nabbit, I'm starting to get tired already. Oh, boy, do we have a daf ahead of us. Oh, alright, well, I hope that I don't lose my short-term memory. So we said that a Yisrael who marries a chalala, so the child can marry a kohen. How do we know this? Nemar Khan, it says, it says that he shouldn't make his children chalos be'amov. And it says by tuma of a kohen lo yitama bal be'amov, that the fellow should not become tame be'amov. So malahalan's chayim, just right. So it says be'amov both by chalal as well as by tuma for a kohen. So malahalan's chayim v'lo nekevish, just like tuma for kohanim only applies to the fellows but not to the fellas. Safkan's chayim v'lo nekevos, also chalols will only be transmitted via the fellows, not by the fellas. So if that is the case, if we're saying that it only applies to the boys and not to the girls, so if you have a kohen gadol who marries an almana and they have a daughter, so I thought it only applies to the boys, not to the girls. She shouldn't be a halala. So miksiv bino zaro ksiv, yeah, but it doesn't say that loichal bino, it says loichal zaro. Both, right? Any children, any offspring that would be from this relationship would be a halal, whether it's a boy or a girl. Right, leichal zaro be'amav. Right, his children, whether boys or girls. Bas bino tishtri. Let's say that the daughter of his son, though, should be permitted. Right, let's say that it applies only to his immediate children, but not to the second generation. So ksiv leichal zaro makish zaro lo. That we're gonna leichal zaro, that we compare his children to him. Mahu bito psula, just like his daughter would be a halala. Afino bito psula, also his son who's a halal, his daughter would be a halala. Bas bito titzer, the daughter of his daughter, right? So if he has a daughter and she's a halala, so then her child should also be a halala. So imkain gzeir shava mayahani label. Then what would be the point of the gzeir shava where it says be'amav, to say that it only applies to the boys and not the girls, right? So where it applies to the boys and not the girls is that if he has a daughter and she's a halala, and then she marries a Yisrael, so that child will not be a halal. Alright. Halal shenosa bas Yisrael bito psula. We said that if a halal marries a bas Yisrael, then the child is a halal. So, right, the daughter cannot marry a kohen. So ha tana leit reisha. But why are we saying this? Why are we saying cholol shenosa bas Yisrael bito psula? The first part of the Mishnah already said bas cholol zachar psul min kahuna, that the daughter of a cholol zachar is psul min kahuna olam forever. So I did the tana reisha Yisrael shenosa halala, tana nami seifa cholol shenosa bas Yisrael. Well, since the Mishnah says a Yisrael who marries a halala, the child can marry a kohen, so it also says that a cholol shenosa bas Yisrael. But yeah, you're right. It was already stated in the first line of the Mishnah. Fine. So our Mishnah, of course, is not like Rabbi Dostai ben Yehuda, right? Maybe some of you were thinking that meaning our Mishnah is saying that a halal zocher, no, that a Yisrael who marries a halala. No, that a chalal zacher who marries a bas Yisrael, so the child is a chalal. But of course, we've seen the opinion that bnos Yisrael mikvatar l'chalalim. Right, we've seen the opinion that a Jewish woman purifies the chalals, that the child will not be a chalal. The Tanya is learned by Rabbi Dostai ben Yehuda Omer, Kshem she bnei Yisrael mikvatar l'chalalos, just like bnei Yisrael are mikvatar for chalalos. Right, that if she's a halala and a Yisrael has a baby with a halala, the child is not a halal. So kach b'nos Yisrael mikvatar l'chalalim. So oichid the b'nos Yisrael mikvatar l'chalalim, i.e. that if the father is a halal but she is not, so then she will make the baby a non-halaldika baby. So my time of Dostai Berbuda, how come Dostai Berbuda says this? Amar the pasuk says lo yichalal zaro ba'amov, that he shouldn't make a cholol be'amav, that when they are the same, that when they are both be'amav singular, ba'am echad hu temeichol b'shnei amamim enu meichol. It says right be'amav, not be'amamav. So meaning it's only a cholol when they are both the same, when they are both when they are one and the same, that they are both cholos. But if he's a cholol and she's not, or fakert, so then the child will not be a cholol. Okay, fine. So says he should not make his children into a cholol. In the Elazaro, he asked me how to know that she herself becomes a cholol. So for example, if a kohen gadol sleeps with an almana, so an almana is allowed to marry a kohen, but she cannot marry. Right? She's allowed to marry a kohen hedjit. She cannot marry a kohen gadol. So if a kohen gadol has a baby with an almana, so that's not allowed. The child is a cholol. The child is a cholol. How do you know that she also becomes a cholala and she can no longer marry a kohen hedjit? So Amid Kavachomer, well, we say it's logical. Mazaroi shaloi over avere mischala. Well, if the innocent yingel, the innocent child who never did anything wrong, and the child by no fault of his own, by no wrongdoing of his own, he's a cholol. Mischalel he she'avra avere no jinshem mischaleles. Well, she who has done an avera, right? She had a baby with somebody she wasn't allowed to. Certainly, she should be a chalala. Huatzma yochiach. But one second, let me ask you a kasha. The kohen gadol himself, she'avra avera vein mischalel. He of course did an avera, and he's not becoming a chalal. Yeah, but malahu shekein in mischalel b'chol makom. Tomar b'hi b'shemischalel b'chol makom. Yeah, but that's because boys don't become chalals like that. Right, girls do, as we learned the other day. Right, if you right, we said a fellow who's 9 years old in a day, if he's a nosin, a mamzer, any of these things, she becomes psula l'kuna. So there are all sorts of situations where she can become psula l'kuna. Masha ein kain, the fellow doesn't become a chalal in those situations. So therefore, sure, yeah, she becomes a chalala, but he doesn't necessarily become a chalal. And if you're going to ask a kasha on our Kal V'chomer, which said that, well, if the child that didn't do anything wrong becomes a chalal, certainly she who did something wrong, she would become a chalala. If you're going to ask a kasha on the Kal V'chomer, and we don't say yet what the kasha is, but we'll see in a minute. But if you're going to ask a kasha on the Kal V'chomer, well, then I'll give you a different answer. On my Qur'an, the passage says, Lo yichalel zar lo yichulol. That it says lo yichal zar, you should not be mechal and make a chalal his children, but you can also read it lo yichulo, that become a chalal. Zeh shehaya kosher minischalal. That's talking about somebody who was initially kosher, for example, the almana, and then she became a chalala. So we see that she also becomes a chalala. Ma'im nafsh chalomer. What was the kasha that you would have asked on our Kal V'chomer? Well, v'chitema ikal mifrach. Maybe you can ask malazaro shken yitziraso ba'averim. Look, we wanted to say, well, look, poor kid, he never did anything wrong, and yet he becomes a chalala. Certainly, she who did something wrong should become a chalala. But I could also reframe, frame it differently and say, well, this child was always a chalal, right? It was yitziraso ba'averim. His whole creation was in sin, right? Whereas she was initially ksheris, so maybe she doesn't become a chalala. So Amakra lo yichalal lo yichulo zeh kosher v'nischalo. So therefore we say, yeah, but the pasuk says, right, lo yichal, which we learn at lo yichulo, which means it's talking about somebody who was kshera and became a chalala. It's talking about, in the case of Amana the kohen gadol, so we're talking about the Amana. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Ezo chalala. Who is a chalala? Kol shenolda min apsulim. Somebody who's born from psulim. My psulim, what psulim are we talking about? Ilim, psulim lo. If we're talking about somebody who's possible to him, and lav davka even a kohen, it can even be a Yisrael. If we're talking about if anybody sleeps with somebody who is not allowed to, so that child becomes a chalal. But arei machzer grushaso. But that's not true, because what about a fellow who's machzer grushaso, right? Right, a fellow is married and they get divorced. She then goes and marries somebody else and they get divorced, or she becomes a widow. She's not allowed to remarry the original husband. But what if she does? Dipsulalo, she's not allowed to. Uvanei aksherim, and yet the children are not chalals. The pasuk says toiva he toiva, she is an abomination. Bein bonei toivim, but not the children. The children are ksherim. So Rav Yehuda says, Rav Yehuda Achikam, this is how to understand the Brisa. Ezu chalala, who's a chalala kol shenolda min psul kehuna. Somebody who's born from a psul kuna. For example, if a kohen marries a grusha, so then the child is or let's say a kohen gadol marries an almana, so the child is a chalal. But nolda in, lo nolda lo. But what davka, the child is a chalal, but not her. Hari almana ugrusha zona delo nolda v'kavi chalala. Right, in these cases, even forget about the baby. She herself is going to be a chalala. So Marabba Achikam says, Rabba, this is what it means. Ezo chalala muzkeres. Who is the chalala that is mentioned? Shelohaya la shasa kosher klal, that never ever was kosher. Kol shenolda min psul kahuna davka. If the child was born out of a psul kahuna, right? So for example, if you have an amon and a kohen gadol, the child from the time that it was created was pasul. My muzkeres, what does it mean that it is mentioned? Amar of Yitzchak by Avin Achikama Ezui Chalala she'ikar midivei Torah. Who is the chalala that the ikar is in the Torah, right? As the passage says, right? V'lo yichalal zaro, his children. Ve'in tzrichin lefayish midivei sofim. Doesn't need any rabbinic darshaning, right? Like yichal v'lo yichula. Kol shenodam im psulei kahuna. Somebody who's born from a psulei kahuna, right? The offspring that is born is included in v'lo yichal zaro ba'ama. But she isn't learn out straight from the pasuk. She's learning from a drasha. Lo yichal, lo yichula. So who is directly learning out directly from the pasuk? That is the child. Turn Rabbana, the rabbis taught almane tzricha almane enu chayv ela achas grushe enu chayv ela achas almanu grushe v'chalal zona bizman shem kaseder chayv al kol achas v'achas zintzuf v'nischal v'nischashem v'nisam enu chayv ela achas. Friends, you got that? Good. Let's go weiter. Just kidding. Let's read it again. Tana Rabban almana enu chayv ela achas. If she's a triple almana, he's only going to be chayv once. Kilo almana l'kohen gadol. We're going to have to. We'll explain what that means in a few minutes. Grusha enu chayv ela achas. If she's a triple divorcee, a kohen hedjit would only be chayv once. Almana, if she was first an almana, ugrusha, and then she became a grusha, v'chalala, and then she became a chalala, zona, and then she became a zona. Bisman shem kaseder, if it's in that order, chayv al kol achas v'achas, then the kohen gadol who marries this almana, who is also a grusha and a chalala and a zona, then she would be chayv for 4 times. But if it was fakert, if it was zinchsov and ischalav and isgashav and isarmila, enu chayv ela achas, is only going to be chayv once. So Amar Mai, we just said almana enu chayv ela achas, that a triple almana is only chayiv makis once. So hi almana echidami. What's this triple almana? Ilem shabal almanas Ruvain v'al almanas Shimon v'al almanas Levi. If it says that the kohen gadol first slept with Reuven's almana, and then Shimon's almana, and then Levi's almana, so my enu chayiv ela achas. Why is he only chayiv once? Harei gufin muchlakim. It's 3 separate women. Harei shemus muchlakim, and it's 3 different names, right? Kilu the almana of Reuven, the almana of Shimon, the almana of Levi. So maybe it's if you have a kohen gadol who sleeps with 1 almana but 3 times. Heichidami, right? We're saying only chayiv once. Heichidami. Idlo asube. If they only warned him once, well then pshita they no chayiv ela achas. Obviously, it's only chayiv once. Ela da asube akochad v'chada. Okay, so but if it's saying that they warned him for between each time. Then why would it only be chayiv once? We learned in the Mishnah, if you have a Nazarite, we learned Masechta Nazir, he's not allowed to drink wine. If he's drinking wine all day long, and chayiv ela achas is only going to be chayiv once, but meaning assume that they only warned them once. But if they keep on warning him, don't drink, and he drinks, and they keep on warning him again, don't drink, and he drinks, he's going to be chayiv for each one based on the warnings. So there's no problem. Sheba al almanas Reuven shoysa almanas Shimon shoysa almanas Levi. It's talking when he's only chayiv once. It's talking about where he sleeps with this fella. We have a kohen gadol who sleeps with this almana who was married to Levi, and she became an almana from Levi. Then she married Shimon, became an almana from Shimon. Then she married Reuven, she became an almana from Reuven. So Ma'adetema, I may have thought Harishemus Muchlakim. Well, it's 3 different names, right? Reuven, Shimon, Levi, right? The almana of each of them. So I might think that would be chayiv for each one. No, in order to be chayiv 3 times, it would have to be 3 separate people, whereas in this case, it's the same person who happens to be a triple almana. Almana ugrusha v'chalala zona. So we said, if she's an almana, and then she becomes a grusha, and then she becomes a chalala, and then she becomes a zona, haitana my kasaver, and we're going to explain it in a second. My kasaver, What's pshat, right? I mean, we said Davka has to be at that order. If she's first an Amana, then becomes a Grusha, then becomes a Chalala, then becomes a Zona, he's chayav 4 times. But if she was first a Zona, and then a Chalala, and then a Grusha, then an Amana, so then it will only be chayav once. So Tana, my kasaver, what's going on here? Kasaver Isser Chalal Isser. If the Tana holds Isser Chalal Isser, that one Isser can fall upon another, right? So you have a Kohen Gadol, he's not allowed to marry an Amana, and also a Grusha, and also a Chalala, and a Zona. So if we say that all of these Issers kind of fall on one another, well then Ipchanami. Well then, even if it was in the opposite order, even if it was Zona, Chalala, Grusha, Amana, if we're saying Isser Chalal Isser, that one Isser could fall on another, so regardless of the order, he should be chayav for all 4. V'kasavar ein Isser Chalal Isser. If you say that an Isser does not get compounded onto an existing Isser, I feel like say there as an Amilo. Well, if that's the case, then even if it's in this order, it shouldn't make a difference. You should only be chayav once. So Amar Rava says, Rava Aitana Isser Chalal Isser Leisle. So our Tana does not hold of Isser Chalal Isser just like as a sort of general rule. However, Isser Mosif Isle. But if it is adding, then he would hold that it's Chalal Isser. So Kilu, let's go weiter for a second. So Amona. So if you have a Kohen Gadol, he's not allowed to marry an Amona. Amona asur the Kohen Gadol. V'shari the Kohen Hedjit. Amona is not allowed to marry a Kohen Gadol, but a widow can marry a Kohen Hedjit. So now vis-a-vis this Kohen Gadol, if he sleeps with her, he'll be chayav once for sleeping with an Amona. But Havila Grusha, but if then she gets remarried, and then she gets divorced, so now not only is she an Amona, she's also a Grusha. So now that she sort of adds a new sort of Isser, which is vis-a-vis a Kohen Hedjit, right? An Amona was permitted to a Kohen Hedjit, but now that she's a Grusha, all of a sudden now she's not permitted to a Kohen Hedjit. So the Amona was only also to the Kohen Gadol, not to the Kohen Hedjit. But now that she's a Grusha, she's also now asura to a Kohen Hedjit. Itosif la isur ligabe Kohen Gadol, so we also add the isur to a Kohen Gadol, right? I mean, if the Kohen Gadol now sleeps with her, then he'll be chayiv twice. But she could still continue to eat truma, right? If she is a widow and a divorcee, she could still eat truma, as long as she doesn't have many children. If she's a bas Yisrael married to Yisrael, she goes back home and she can continue. If she's about bas Kohen, she can go back home after the death or divorce. She can go back home and eat truma. But havila chalala. But if, as a grusha, for example, she sleeps with a kohen, so then a kohen's not allowed to be with a grusha. So now she becomes a chalala, and now she can no longer. Right. So now by sleeping with her, she becomes a chalala. So now as a chalala, she's not allowed to eat truma. Now as a chalala, she's not allowed to eat truma. So Yitosef Yisur Ligabi Kohen Gadol. So also now if a Kohen Gadol sleeps with her, then now that she was an almana, and then became a grusha, and then became a chalala. So if a Kohen Gadol sleeps with her, it'll be chayiv 3 times. Elazona my Isur Mosif Isbeh. Okay, now if she becomes a zona, so then what is added? What is added that wasn't there before? So Rav Chana Bar Rav Katina Hoil V'Shem Znus Posel B'Yisrael. Well, since Znus is something that applies even to a Yisrael, so that's sort of the added thing. So, for example, if she's married and then she has a relationship that she's not allowed to have with somebody else, so then she becomes also to her husband, she becomes a zona, and so then it's something even that applies to Yisrael. That's the chiddush there. So therefore, if it was in that order, Amona, then Grusha, then Chalala, then Zona, so then the Kohen Gadol would be chayav 4 times. But if it was fakert, if it started as a Zona, then already she's asura to Kohen Hedjit, and she can't, I guess the point is she can't eat truma, and she's asura to Kohen Gadol, so nothing's being added anymore. Fine. So Tana Kamid of Sheshes, a Tana taught before of Sheshes. Kolshu b'yikach hariu b'lo yikach. That when it says by Kohen Gadol, it says Amanu Gusha v'chalala zona esela lo yikach. He can't take them. So that only applies if it was initially b'yikach, right? So kilu meaning it says that Kohen Gadol can't marry an Amana. When the pasuk says that Kohen Gadol can't marry an Amana, it's somebody who normally he would be able to marry, but she's an Amana. It's somebody who, if she was like a Pnuya, he'd be able to marry her, but she's an Amana right now, so now he can't marry her. And if somebody who wouldn't have been able to marry initially, so enu below yikach, then it's not a violation of below yikach. Prad lekohen gadol shebal achoso Amana. Well, for example, if you have a Kohen Gadol and his sister is an Almana. So the thing is, he already was also to his sister because it's his sister. So he won't be chayiv for Almana, he would be chayiv for being with his sister. So Amalei do Amalach money. So if Shesha says, who says this? Who says this? Reb Shimoni, is it Reb Shimon de Amar, who says, Ein Isser Chal al Isser. So Reb Shimon says, Ein Isser Chal al Isser. One Isser cannot fall on another Isser. So now, because she was already usher to him because she was his sister, so therefore the fact that she's an almana is not, he's going to be pater for that because he's already chayiv for her being his sister. The Tana is willing to buy. Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon, ha'ochel nevela b'yom kippurim. If somebody eats nevela on Yom Kippur, so the nevela was already usher, right? Assuming that it was already dead before Yom Kippur, so it was already usher before Yom Kippur. So now the eating on Yom Kippur, pater, Reb Shimon says that the fellow will be pater because he's already chayiv for eating nevela. He's not going to be chayiv for kares for Yom Kippur. The Rabban, now if it's the rabbi, so Amr Isser Chal Isser. They say Isser is Chalas and you'd be chayiv for eating the Nevela on Yom Kippur. So from the fact that we say that the Kohen Gadol would be chayiv for sleeping with his sister, but not for, violating the fact that she's an almana, so it means Ein Isser Chal Isser, so it is Reb Shimon. So for the time Rabbanan, we just say no, you can even say it's the rabbis because Ki Amri Rabbanan Isser Chal al Isser, Hanamili Isser Chomer al Isser Kal. That when the Chacham say that, for example, if you eat Nevela on Yom Kippur, you're chayiv, that's because Nevela, because Yom Kippur is Chiyuv Karis, Nevela is a lav. So therefore, they say they're going to be chayiv there because Yom Kippur is more stringent than Nevela. Aval Isser Kal al Isser Chomer lo chayil. But in our case of, but in this case, where you have the Kohen Gadol and his sister, where that's a Chiyuv Karis, but the fact that she's an Amana is only a lav, so in that case the Chacham would not, so you could say that is like the rabbis also, because since it is the lav of Amana is less stringent than the problem of sleeping with your sister, that is why they would say Ein Isser Chal al Isser, even in so there they would say Ein Isser Chal al Isser. Fine. Starting to fade a little bit, but we're basically done. Ikadam, to those who say Hamani Rabbani, you could taka say that, right, those who say no, it's taka the rabbis. Because the Amir Isser Chal Isser who do say Isser Chal Isser by Nevela and Yom Kippur. V'chiyamir Rabban Isser Chal Isser Hanami Isser Chamal Isser Kal, and when they say Isser Chal Isser, that is when it is a more stringent Isser on a more lenient Isser. For example, Nevela and Yom Kippur. Right, Yom Kippur is more stringent than Nevela. Aval Isser Kal al Isser Chomer lo chayil. But the Chacham would say a more lenient Isser on top of a more stringent Isser, for example, Almana on top of the fact that she's your sister, lo chayil. No, the Reb Shimon, because if it was a Shimon Hashta Amri Hashta Isser Chomer al Isser Kal lo chayil, if Reb Shimon says that there's no Isser Chal Isser even with Nevela and Yom Kippur, where we're talking about Kares being added to a lav, where am I? Right, lo chayil. Reb Shimon says it's not chal. Isser kal al isser chomer miboya. So obviously, then he would not be chayiv for sleeping with an almana when she's also his sister. So Ma'adatema, you could say no, it even is Reb Shimon Isser Kuna Shiny Kamashman. I might think that even though Reb Shimon says Ein Isser Chol Isser by Nevela and Yom Kippur, I may have thought to say that Kohen Gadol with his sister, maybe Taka we would say Isser Chol Isser, because as we know that we're particularly strict when it comes to Kohanim. So no, Kamashman, we're saying it's the Rabbi's opinion, not Reb Shimon. Friends, that was Daf Ein Zayin of Masechet Kiddushin. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.